How's everybody doing this morning? If you're wondering who I am, my name is Charles Wilson. I am the lead pastor here at the Hill Church. I actually uh, get to preach from time to time, and this morning is one of those opportune times. Thank you guys for leading us in worship this morning. Wasn't Sandra killing it this morning? Yeah. All right. How am I going to start this morning? I haven't done this in a while. I got to figure this out. You want the scriptures first? The words come out, and just talk a lot, and then around 11 something, just stop and pray and invite Jesus in. All right, cool. All right, I'm gonna do that. It's gotta just like double dutch. You just gotta pop up in there. All right, open your Bible to the book of Joshua. The book of Joshua, Yahshua, J to the seventh letter. It's an inside thing. If you have it, please stand with me. I'm going to read verses 1 through 11. We are beginning this book. This is the first sermon. You are here today. So if you want to know what happens, you got to come every week, or you won't know. You can't read it at home. I'm joking. You better read it at home. All right. Joshua chapter 1. Verse 1, I am reading from the CSB Bible. If you need a Bible, we have plenty in the back. It says, after the death of Moses, the Lord's servant, the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now you and all the people prepare to cross over the Jordan to the land I am giving the Israelites. I have given you every place where the sole of your foot treads. Just as I promised Moses, your territory will be from the wilderness of Lebanon to the great river Euphrates River, all of the land of the Hittites and west of the Mediterranean Sea. No one will be able to stand against you as long as you live. I will be with you, just as I was with Moses. I will not leave you or abandon you. Be strong and courageous, for you will distribute the land I swore to their fathers to give them as an inheritance. Also, above all, be strong and very courageous to observe carefully the whole instruction my servant Moses commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or the left, so that you will have success wherever you go. This book of instruction must not depart from your mouth. You are to meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to observe everything written in it. For then you will prosper and succeed in whatever you do. Haven't I commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Lord, I pray that in these next few moments, as we walk through this first 11 verses of the book of Joshua, that you help us see what you were saying to the original audience. Help us see the landscape and see what they were facing, what you were calling them into. And help us, if there are principles and practical applications for us today, for us to see in our own lives. No, we are not Joshua, and we are not the Israelites. For we live in a valley that looks a lot different, in a time that is way different, facing things that are a little different than what they were facing. But the God who called Joshua and led the Israelites and promised things to them and fulfilled those promises is the same God today that we serve. So help us see what we may be missing, what we need to see. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. You may be seated. Anybody in this room play baseball? I know David played baseball. He talked about it. Anyone else? I see one. I see two. All right, so baseball is just not the American sport anymore. All right, what the heck did the rest of you guys play? football, tennis, basketball. So I heard of volleyball somewhere. Little league. Little league what? Baseball? Okay. All right. All right. Raise your hand if you played no sports. So everyone played something. All right. Or you just don't want to raise your hands. It's just I'm starting to deduce that you're just a bunch of liars, I guess, at this point. All right. And so um might have been traumatic, but well, all right. Is this a safe place? It is? You just lied a few minutes ago. Are you lying now? I just want to make sure before I open myself up to a room full of people who don't often tell the truth. Um, and if you don't get me, then YouTube will get me. Somewhere, someone will. Well, I played a lot of sports growing up, but back in those days, most of those sports was just like unorganized with your friends. For some reason, we all knew where to be and what time to be there. And if you were looking for where everyone was, you would just look around and try to find where all the bikes were piled up. No one's bike was on a kickstand. It was just a bunch of bikes, and you go, they're in this area, and then you would go find where we were. And we played a lot of crazy games. The craziest game we played, and don't fully judge me, was tackle football on bikes. I don't know whose idea it was. It wasn't mine. Uh, I don't know whose idea it was. Someone in my neighborhood thought of it, and you can't go, I don't want to play that, or like you just for some reason, you know how Granny would say, if your friends jump off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge also? If your friends are going to play tackle football on bikes, would you play also? You couldn't go, oh, I'm going home. Like, it just wasn't acceptable. And so I got bullied into playing tackle football on bikes. But one thing that I got bullied into that I didn't want to do was baseball, because baseball was hard. I shared before that I quit football because I didn't like the coach telling me what to do and making me run laps. I'm like, I don't like this. And so I quit football because I want to go back and just do sports the way we did in my neighborhood. But one sport that everyone in my neighborhood wanted to play was baseball. And guess who played baseball? The same kid who played tackle football on bikes. Guess who was horrible at baseball? I was trash at baseball. Looking back, I don't even know why I kept going, why I didn't even quit. I quit football, so I knew I could quit, but for some reason, I kept playing baseball. And in my neighborhood, just to give you a glimpse, like everyone was pretty great. They were above average. Like Milton Bowen, who lived in my neighborhood, he got accepted to play for the Bengals. Rudy was my best friend growing up. This dude had broke all the records in high school for wrestling. He broke records in basketball. Like this is the caliber of people I had to play with growing up. Me, I was below average. I wasn't too tall. I wasn't too short. I wasn't too fast. I wasn't too slow. I wasn't the last guy, but I was pretty close. And even my cousin Fatima, we would box, and she beat me a few times. It was tough growing up in my neighborhood. And so I find myself out in the middle of this freaking game called baseball, wearing all the gear. I played for the San Diego Padres. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember vividly my coach saying, Charles, you're on deck. To which my heart always dropped because I knew what that meant. If I'm on deck, I'm next up to strike out. It is not possible that I'm going to hit the ball, and it's not possible I'm going to be the hero. If I had to play in the outfield, another horrible place to be. You know why? Because every now and then, one of those kids would hit the ball into the outfield right where I'm at. And it seems like the sun hated me and everything hated me, and I'd stand there. And so eventually I just said, I'm just going to wait for the ball to hit the ground, and then I'll pick it up and throw it in. I'm not even going to try to catch it. Why waste everyone's time? It could possibly hit me. This is therapy. So as you're laughing at me, you just reminded me of how everyone else laughed when we were playing. But being on deck, being the next up, knowing everyone's watching me, knowing I got to do something out here, and one time I got on base, and twice. Once I almost got on base. One time I did get on base. I almost got on base when I hit the ball. Oh, it was luck. My eyes were closed. I don't even know how I hit the ball. It was great. I felt it. It was a little low on the bat, so it did kind of hurt my hands a little bit, but it was a line drive, and it just, to which everything inside of me stood up and said, you're amazing. You are awesome. And then one of my real good friends, he lived 2 houses down, the first kid I ever got into a fight with, Demetrius Jones, he caught the ball. But it still felt good, even though I didn't make it to the base. It wasn't a strikeout. And the other time I got on base, for real, was when I got hit with the ball. And yes, I was limping and I was hurting and I was wincing, but I was on first base. It was amazing. It was a great day. Didn't make it home because someone got out. And I was like, you suck. Why'd you get out? Now I became the guy who's talking trash. But I can feel Joshua's suspense being next on deck. Like, can you imagine watching and being involved with God leading the Israelites out of Egypt? It was dramatic. Like, he didn't just lead them out. Like it wasn't like there was this parade. Like, it was a battle. Like, Pharaoh didn't want to let the people go. He rolled up and said, you know what? I changed my mind. And they're out there at the sea, and let's just go clobber them. Let's go get them. Clobbering is an old word from Fantastic Four, the rock guy, don't worry. Context is king. And he's like, you know what? Let's just roll up on them and let's get them. And God has them there. The people are getting frustrated. Moses is like, yo, Lord, what are we going to do? And he's like, take out your staff. And he opened up the sea, and the Bible says that they walked on dry ground. Like, why did God make this super crazy, dramatic exit? I don't know. But that book is called Exodus. And they walked across, and then when they got to the other side, the water came back crushing, killing all their enemies that day. And the Lord says to them, you will never see them again. And then they march through the wilderness, and God feeds them and delivers them and gives them water and protects them. And this amazing prophet who has stood before the people, who has led the people, who was the one that God used to set those captives free, has now died. In fact, if you still have that chapter, a few verses back, it gives the story of how Moses died. In verse 9, it says, Joshua the son of Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid hands on him. So the Israelites obeyed him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. That's a tough job. To be the next in line after an amazing, great leader. And maybe you felt that before. Maybe you've taken an assignment behind someone who did a great job. Maybe you were next in command. Maybe you were the one to follow. Maybe you married the guy whose mom made amazing macaroni and cheese, and now you're up to bat with your macaroni and cheese, and he says to you, it's not my mama's macaroni and cheese, to which you say back to him, go to your mama's house. And that's personal. I'm sorry. That's just my marriage story. After the death of Moses, the Lord is not saying in verse 2, Moses, my servant, is dead, because Joshua is unaware that his master is gone. No, that's not what's happening here. The Lord is actually explaining to him that it's a different day. He who used to lead and give direction, and he who I talked face to face, he who took the instruction from me and gave it to you is no longer between us, and now we're going to talk face to face, and you're going to lead these people. Have you ever criticized a leader before? I've criticized every pastor I ever had. I don't know why this dude did it that way. I don't know why we got to go and do that. Then I became the most perfect pastor of all time. You don't know what it's like to be perfect and have no one ever criticize you, do you? It's a hard job. Now, Moses was a great leader, and yet Moses was a flawed human. Nobody had that vantage point better than Joshua. Because Joshua took the instructions from his leader and tried to be faithful. And he did a great job. If you read through, every time we see Joshua in the first 5 books, he is serving Moses. He's bringing back a good report. He is holding up his hands. He is doing all the things that was asked of him. And it is an easy or different position when you're the guy just supporting the girl or the guy, but it's a little different when you're the person. And God gives you instructions that he doesn't give everyone else. And you try to over-explain yourself, but God didn't ask you to over-explain yourself. He just said, be the mom that you're supposed to be. I know she wants all the answers, but right now she can't even calculate all the answers. You just be faithful and be the parent that you're supposed to be. Or be the sibling, or be the child, or be the person in that position that I asked you to be. It's tough. And here's the other thing. That Joshua is still dealing with the loss of his leader. My first point is death. Typically, when I give points, it's usually a theological statement. God is with you, or the Lord is saying something. I've moved from just one word to giving a theological statement, but I thought this morning about this first section, and God is giving a theological statement. Death. And what do I mean? Well, the first time death even comes up is in the garden, where God is having a conversation with the first two people. This is the day that you don't listen to me and you partake in something I'm telling you not to partake in, you will experience death. The next time death comes up in the scriptures, you remember, it was where? The children of those two people. Adam and his wife, after experiencing the loss of their closeness with the Lord because of their unfaithfulness and disobedience, now they are at a funeral for one of their children. They're now dealing with death again. And the reason why I think it's important to just sit here for a second is because no matter who you are, or what you have, or where you go, or how often you try to bully me into growing the CrossFit, the reality is, one day, we will all have to cross this pathway. We will all have to sit at a funeral. We will all have to deal with the reality of something that we don't want to always face. In the last month, I had to go and do 2 funerals. One was for one of my great friends, his 17-year-old son, who loved the Lord, was a great kid, was on his way to the mall with his friends, and he got into a car accident. And the other one was a 40-year-old man that I knew who suddenly passed away at home. It is part of all of our stories. And for Joshua, it was the starting point of him now being in charge of the nation of Israel. He couldn't go to his mentor and ask questions. He had to just remember the things he saw at his feet. And I can imagine that both dealing with this and now being called, being up on deck to lead these people, there would have been a little bit of fear and trembling inside of him. And yet, the Lord, who is so good, who knows that Joshua is dealing with a few things, begins to give him, this is my second point, instructions, terms, and conditions. Instructions, terms, and conditions. It says, Moses, my servant, is now dead. Now you and all these people prepare to cross over the Jordan to the land I am giving the Israelites. Prepare the people, go before them, explain, don't just pop it on them, but prepare them. This is what a good leader should do. It would be pretty crazy for your parents to wake you up in the middle of the night and say, we're moving to Alaska, versus giving you some time to prepare. We took a class on growing kids God's way, and one of the things they told us in doing that is just don't spring up on your kids, it's bedtime. Because usually there's a revolt. He said, but what you should do is maybe 15 minutes early, just say, it's getting closer to bedtime, Timmy. To which there's probably going to be a little bit of sucking of the teeth and a little bit of like, oh man, but at least you're giving him this runway to be prepared. Don't you like a runway? Let me make it a little clearer. When someone calls me, one time, Dylan called me and said, PC, we need to meet. And for the next 3 days, I was like, what do we need to meet about? What is it? What could it be? So now I've learned, if you call me and you say, PC, we need to meet or we need to talk, I'm going to say about what? I need a little bit of runway, because it could be anything from, I don't like you, I hated the way you parse the Greek, I don't like this, I'm leaving the church, or you're awesome. I don't want to be in the wilderness for 3 days because you want to tell me I'm awesome or you don't like me anymore. He prepares the people. It's a good leader to cross over the Jordan. Isn't it interesting that God has given him such clear, precise instructions? Don't you like it when you get clear, precise instructions? Not even just from the Lord, but just from the closest people with you. Isn't it whack when your supervisor says, just get it done? And then you go and you get it done and they go, you didn't do it the way I wanted you to do it. Well, if you wanted me to do it a certain way, give me clear, precise instructions. Just tell me who to marry, where to live, what job to take, and I'll get it done. Is there anyone that annoying in here that needs all of it given to you on paper? Very rarely does the Lord give it to you that clearly. But sometimes he does. For Joshua in this moment, it's pretty clear. You're about to cross over the Jordan. Bet. He doesn't have to wonder, are we going this way? Are we going that way? Should we go back this way? Which way should we go? You're going across the Jordan. Bet. I've seen this move before with the Red Sea. It's probably going to be something like that, right? Your territory, listen to this. These instructions will be from, he's given them the boundaries of what's going to be theirs. From the wilderness of the Lebanon to the great river, the Euphrates River, all the land of the Hittites. So he knows we rolling up on the Hittites. I don't like them anyway. We going over here to the Euphrates. That's going to be the edge. Oh, those trees over there are fly. We're going to go over here. And God's giving them full clarity. You're going across the Jordan. You're going this way. You're going to deal with these people over here. So don't take those shields because they don't work in battle with those people. Take these other ones because they're crafty. And make sure that you're prepared over here, because right here next to the river, those mosquitoes, they like to pop off over there. So they know exactly where God is sending them. And then God begins to give him the terms and the conditions. And no one's going to be able to stand against you as long as you live. I will be with you. I will not leave you. I will not abandon you. That's great. That's awesome. And here comes the terms or conditions. However, be strong and courageous. Man, because you got some work to do. And I'm a promise-keeping God. And so the promises that I gave to your forefathers, you're about to see it. You guys are about to walk into it. But please, verse 7, above all, be strong and courageous to observe carefully the whole instruction my servant Moses commanded you. Joshua, Israel, don't turn to the right or the left, because I want to make sure you have success. Verse 8, this book of instruction must not depart from your mouth. You are to meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to observe everything I have written in it. The Lord is saying, be strong. Stay with the word. Because you have work to do. Because if you turn, if you abandon the book, it's not going to roll out the way I want it to roll out in your life. I don't know about you. Whenever someone tells me about a cool app on my phone, I'm not even going to say what kind of phone it is. I go and I look for the app, and then it gives me this long legal information, the terms and conditions to operate this application. To which I take my glasses out and sit down and I read line for line everything inside of those terms and conditions to make sure that there is nothing in there that I don't agree with. I have never done that a day of my life. And I've gotten a few mortgages. I've done a few different things. And I've just asked someone, can you please interpret for me what is being said here? But when it comes to my applications, I don't. And you know what could be inside of that application? Hey, sir, kind sir, at 3 a.m, we reserve the right to turn on this application and to listen to you and your wife talk about things. We reserve the right to turn on the camera so that we can watch you as you take selfies. We reserve the right to download all of your information and sell it on the black market. They could be saying all of those things, and if you don't read the terms and conditions, you could be agree. Because I click quickly, agree. I agree. I don't want to read all this stuff. And here's what the Lord is saying to Joshua. I have these plans for you. I have plans for my people. And here's the terms and conditions. You got to stay in the book. You be strong and be confident because I'm promising my presence. Meditate on this word that is in front of you. Now for Joshua, he didn't have the whole text that we have. He just has the words of Moses, the first 5 books of the Bible. You got 66. Josh, can I call you Jay? He's unlike our Joshua. He likes nicknames. Stay in the word. Brother, sister, I know you're mapping out your life. And I know you're wondering what the next step is and what the next thing is, and you don't have the clarity. And I hope you're not following after just kind of what we've been trained as Westerners to follow our impulses and what's comfortable and what we desire, because God doesn't always call us into what's comfortable or what we desire. It would have been very cool if God would have said, I'm going to build a bridge across the Jordan, and I'll take care of all these armies, and I'm just going to set you guys up right here in the middle of the land. Wouldn't that be nice? Yes, I like that. But God didn't call the set up person. He called the servant of Moses, whose job was to go and lead the armies. You got to put in the work. You got to put in the work. There is no way getting around putting in the work. I've tried. I tried to quit several times, every single degree that's been in front of me. And my wife has always talked me back into doing it. And you know what I found out every time I had to get back to doing it? I had to put in the work. I don't like putting in the work. This is why I quit all the sports I was playing. You have to push against those impulses that plead with you to go the easier way. Josh, Jay, keep this book. Don't let it depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night because you're going to need it. You're going to need to remember that my promises are true when everything around you is saying something different. You're going to need to be reminded that sometimes I invite my people to go the hard way and not the easy way. You're going to need it because you're going to have to encourage a group of people who are going to be fearful, who I led this way through the wilderness because I knew they would give up if I led them the other way. And this book will remind you that the leader before you, Joshua, wasn't perfect. And neither are you. And there is grace for you to lead these people and to do this assignment because I'm their God and you aren't. I'm their God and you aren't. So the assignment in front of you, you know how hard it is to watch your 17-year-old begin driving, living somewhere like Dallas, Texas, where the highways are like an amusement park? You know how hard it is to watch your kid secretly through your app walk to school, that they don't know that you're watching them walk to school because they got to cross a little highway and you're a little fearful. But when you were 8 years old, you were allowed to do all types of crazy things. This book of instruction, don't let it leave your mouth. Meditate on it, because you're going to be invited into some soft and some easy. And yes, you serve a Lord that will give you wings to mount up with as eagles, to fly over storms and avoid all types of things. But he doesn't always give us wings to avoid our circumstances. He often gives us an anchor to endure the midst of the storm. And if you're practicing flying over and escaping everything that gets hard, when he's inviting you to anchor down and to be there, you will have no experience knowing that he is able. And who knows, some of your anchoring moments are the future reminders for someone else's testimony that if God did it for you, he can do it for me. I don't always like being the experiment. Lord, I just want to tell him how to just get by and go away. And the Lord's like, yes, sometimes that's what you get to tell them. For instance, I don't brag a lot about being the greatest parent in the world, even though we are. But here's one of our secrets. Our boys' temperaments just wasn't that crazy. It's not because we read scriptures to them and we prayed over them and we anointed them. We did all the things. They listened to Mozart in my wife's belly. We did all those things. And I realized one day that is just because you have two kids with temperaments that are chill. Because I've watched other kids come and their parents do the exact same thing. And them kids is wow. And they do better than what we did. And I've realized it isn't because the parents are just whack. It's because the kids are just different than mine. So how dare I write the book saying this is how you parent young boys? It's like I got two sweet. I mean, they got their stuff. They're not baby Jesuses. They're more like them. But I also know God is just good and kind. So if you got one of those that you're like, man, what is wrong with this girl? It could be something that you're doing. I'm not giving you an escape route. Like, you could be mad wild and like, if you would focus and sit down and eat dinner with them and talk to them, or you could be doing those things and they could just be wild. Pray. God's instructions to Joshua was crystal clear. He was told where to go, how far to go. He even got to have a Red Sea experience part 2. Man, that's cold-blooded. It's a little different for him because their experiences, we'll see when we get further into the book, was different than Moses's. They had to step first before God opened it. For Moses, it opened first. Can you imagine what that would do to your leadership? You saw how it happened for Moses, right? Boom. And then for you, you got to take that step first. Oh, Lord, why not just open it first? Joshua, this is why I told you to be strong and courageous, because some of these things that's going to happen is not going to be the exact same way. Joshua's not the first person that God has invited into something challenging. His predecessor, Moses, was invited to something challenging, and he tried every which way to not do it. Ultimately, the Lord said to him, what is that thing in your hand? What do you already have? All right. My last point, Jeff. He gives him in these last few verses what to do and where to turn. What to do and where to turn. Verse 6, be strong and courageous, for you will distribute the land I swore to your forefathers and to give them as an inheritance. Above all, be strong and courageous to observe carefully the whole instruction my servant Moses commanded you. My goodness, the whole instruction. The whole instruction. Joshua, you need to know the context. You need to know why it happened. You need to know where it happened. And you need to know what was going on in that situation. The entire instruction my servant Moses commanded you. Don't turn from it to the right or the left. Don't deviate. Don't try to remix it. Don't try to do it your way. Don't try to put your spin on it so that you will have success wherever you go. So let me get this straight. God is doing a new thing, but he's using old techniques. He's using an old word. Yes. This book of instruction must not depart from your mouth. You are to meditate on it day and night so that you may carefully observe everything written in it. For then you will prosper and succeed in whatever you do. Verse 9. Haven't I commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged. Why is he telling him to not be afraid or discouraged? Because I'm pretty sure Joshua was both afraid and discouraged. Afraid and discouraged. Be strong, Joshua. When we moved here, my wife and I sensed God was calling us to Roanoke, Virginia. That's all we knew, to plant a church in Roanoke, Virginia. Now, there were some things that we had that we thought God wanted. We knew pretty early that we were to plant a diverse church. We knew pretty early what type of church we came from that we felt the need to plant, but we didn't know where, we didn't know how, and we didn't know when. So a lot of questions I would have liked answered along the way. It would have been very cool if the Lord would have said, all right, Charles, this is what you're going to do. Don't deviate from this to the left or to the right. You're going to go to Roanoke. You're going to live downtown for 2 years. You're going to start your church at the Dumas Center. Don't worry. I'll take care of that. Then I'm going to, allow the world to be disrupted with something called, don't worry about it. It's going to be in 2020. It's a few years from now. You don't have to worry about it. We're going to bless you guys with a facility to renovate, but in the middle of that, there's going to be a worldwide global crisis. But don't worry. There's a church across town that you don't even know yet. They're going to bless you to use their facility downtown for like a year at no cost and no expense. So while you're wondering how you're going to survive, I've already taken care of that. And then from there, there's another property across town. There's a group of people who are praying about their future. They're going to take care of you. They're going to bless you with that facility so that you guys can grow while you're still figuring out the other property, okay? So boom, boom, pow, bang, boom. It's going to be great and awesome. To which I would have said, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. I will stay in Dallas. I have a a health insurance policy. My kids go to great schools. Everything is awesome. The Lord wasn't really interested. This is what it means when he says, I know the plans that I have for you. To which I would say, hey, what are those plans? You want to maybe text me a few? Maybe send a prophet to come my way to explain how you'll take care of everything. To me, it sounds like the Lord is saying this. He's got a pocket protector type thing with a card in it. And one of those cards, it has Charles, this is my card. To which he looks at it and he goes, I know the plans. Oh, I got plans for you. All right. Can I, Lord, can I get up in that thing to read that a little bit? And you know what I would do? If I could, I would make some adjustments. Like, no, Lord, that's not good enough. Or I'd run. Joshua gets clear instructions. But for you and for me, when we don't have clear instructions, this is what I'm closing. It's 11:38. I'm going to close with this. It's going to be worth your admission this morning. I promise. Here's your life plan. If you have some questions concerning what decisions you should make in front of you, if you have some questions on like relationships, like how do I work out this thing here? I'm a silver bullet this thing. I'm telling you, you're gonna be like, I can't believe this dude. You ready? Raise your hand if you love Jesus. All right, bet. I think that's everybody. Raise your hand if you know you are called to be a disciple of Jesus. All right, cool. Whew. Just wanted to make sure what I'm going to say is going to work for you. Just like our path here, I didn't know about Northwest. I didn't care about Northwest. I had no concern about what was happening in this quadrant of the city. I didn't know the history of the people here. I didn't know who was overlooked. I didn't know anything about food deserts or shootings or anything in this part of the city. When we moved here, we were like, Lord, whatever you are calling us to do, we just want to be faithful to what you're calling us to do. And he's like, bet. I want you to come over to this store, and I want you to substitute in this school. And being around certain things and certain people, focused with my antenna trying to figure out where God was calling me, was an invitation to what he was up to. We don't often see what he wants us to do because he's usually inviting us into things that may be against our preferences. What in this moment has he been inviting you into to be faithful? Are you chasing a bag or a better business opportunity? Or are you chasing that perfect thing that reflects upon you to make you look good? Or are you trying to do what he said in Matthew 28? Where he once again gives instructions and terms and conditions. But this time it's Jesus himself. He says, go make disciples. So if you're a disciple of Jesus, your job this morning is to make disciples, not chase a bag or a business opportunity or a specific person. It is to be faithful to Jesus where you're planted and not heavily involved in where you're trying to go. For there is today opportunities to be faithful for him that we can overlook trying to get somewhere else. And if he would have given me super clear instructions, I would have been only thinking about how do we get and take this building at Emmanuel versus being faithful where we were in that moment. I just want to make sure my 8-year-old knows that I love him and I have dinner with him and I spend time with him, because soon he's going to be a 9-year-old. And then he's going to be a 10-year-old. Then he's going to be an 11-year-old. And I don't know how much time is promised to me. And I don't know how much time is promised to you, but today, the instructions are clear if you're a disciple of Jesus. Be faithful with what you have. Be focused on what's in front of you. For the Hittites over there, man, they are rambunctious and crazy. And who knows that he may be preparing you in this season for something in next season, but you need to be faithful and work on those things he's asking you to work on now. This book, Joshua, keep it close. Man, keep it on flip. There's some stuff on the left and the right that's attractive. And you were raised in a society that says success looks like more. Be aware of where you were raised. You were raised in a system that teaches you that you need to put on this facade and this front always that you're successful and things look good and things are happening. But you don't see that in the book. Observe everything that's written in it. I know you're afraid. And I know you want to know what's next. I know it's got you anxious. But this is why he says, I will be with you everywhere you go. Because everywhere you go, you will need him. And then Jesus comes back. He says, go, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I commanded you. And remember, I am with you to the end of the age. I'm with you in your right now uncertainty. I'm with you on this side of the Jordan, and I will be with you on the other side of the Jordan. Though God's people aren't always faithful, when you keep this book on flip, you are reminded over and over and over that when people are unfaithful, he is always faithful. Let's pray. Lord, if there is someone watching this or here today that is in sin, overwhelmed by their sin choices, can you this morning help free them up to see that you are available for the very next step in their life? Many of us remember being engulfed by sin and our sin choices. And it was a slow process. Holding the hand of Jesus, and he ushered us moment by moment with some setbacks and falling short. But now we can tell stories of how he delivered us. If there's someone in this room today and you feel like your sin is so big that you can't make the next choice to trust him, I want you to know that there is grace available for you today. Just make the next right choice. That may be confessing your sin. That may be linking up with a sister or a brother. But whatever it is, there is grace for you today. If you're in this room and you felt the weight when I shared about our decision-making process, and trust me, I am guilty of making decisions based on my ambitions. And then later consulting with the Lord saying, what do you think about this? Brother and sister, today, just put all your hopes and all your trust. Lean not to your own understanding. You can trust him with the unknown because he's trustworthy. A quick study on who God is will quickly show you that he has no beginning and no ending. And when he says he knows the plans and the thoughts that he thinks towards us, it is true because he knows. everything about you. And he is for us, not against us. If you have been entrusted over something this morning, maybe a business, a family, a parachurch ministry, whatever it is, I pray that you also know that the God of the Bible, he can hear your heartbeat. He knows, even when the outside world doesn't know how your heartbeat is upticking and you're having anxiety over a decision or what's in front of you, he knows. And he would love to be invited in there with you. Leading isn't easy. And you don't have to do it alone. Parenting is scary. But you're not alone. And finally, for those who may not know Jesus in the forgiveness of their sins, if you're here also, I want you to know that salvation is available for you today. It isn't as much as you coming to a realization that he's true. It's that the God of the universe has known about you and has wanted you even before you were born. And if you hear the Spirit today inviting you to trust Jesus, don't wait. Let's do that today. Father, for everything in between and things that I may have missed, you don't miss any. You see us where we are. You know the intentions behind our decisions. Father, have your way in our lives. And Lord, as you work on us and work through us, I pray that we can do like you wanted Israel. Be that city set on a hill where people can see and know that there is a God that loves them. And he's forgiven some of the craziest sinners. He's fixed up some of the most broken people you can imagine. And we are just some of those examples. We're billboards for his glory, demonstrating that God has reached into some of the craziest places to call out a people and to put his name on them. Ambassadors, mouthpieces, ministers. Jesus, be glorified.